Sometimes a person hurts another, not because they are truly evil, but because there is too much pain inside them. Evil is not always born out of malice. It is often born from fear, despair, and loneliness. Great thinkers have pondered these questions for millennia, and each has found in them a reflection of their own time, their era, and human nature. A human being is a contradictory creature. They are capable of loving selflessly and causing pain for no reason. We live in a world where a smile can hide resentment, and kind words can mask a desire to manipulate. So why do some choose to heal while others choose to hurt? Perhaps it's because some have managed to heal themselves while others have not. Those who have learned to accept their own pain do not seek to pass it on to others. But those who have not dealt with their inner demons become their conduits to the outside world. Often, we do not see the inner struggle taking place within a person. We only see the consequences of that struggle. Evil directed outward is often a reflection of chaos within. Some people live with wounds they aren't even aware of. And not knowing how to heal themselves, they unintentionally hurt others. They may seem cruel, but inside they are frightened children, waiting for someone to hug them and say, "You are not alone." But not everyone hears such words. Not everyone knows that it is possible to live with pain without inflicting it on others. And then evil becomes their language, harsh, cutting, but the only one they've learned in this world. Above all, evil is not always a choice. More often, it is a result, the fruit of long-standing inner neglect. Evil arises where there is no love, where there was no understanding, where no one listened, where no one offered the hug at the right moment. A child who was humiliated grows up with a desire to prove their strength. A teenager who was rejected may turn into someone who rejects others. An adult who was never taught compassion is afraid of kindness because it makes them vulnerable. And so, without even realizing it, a person becomes a source of pain. Simply because at one time they didn't know how to deal with their own pain, and then they pass this pain on, like a relay baton, not wanting it, but unable to stop it. And evil begins to live its own life, traveling from one heart to another, like a virus transmitted by a touch without love. Sometimes this is generational evil, a legacy of grievances passed down from father to son, from mother to daughter. People are not born cruel. They become that way when their tenderness is rejected again and again. When warmth is rejected, a person gets burnt even by the light. People inflict harm on others because it gives them a fleeting sense of control. The world around us is full of chaos, injustice, and unpredictability. And when someone feels powerless, when they lose control over their own life, they try to gain it over someone else through words, actions, or humiliation. This is an illusion of strength that replaces inner weakness. Sometimes they think that by bringing someone else to their knees, they themselves will be able to stand up. They confuse power with dignity and pain with power. But in reality, the more pain a person inflicts, the further they move away from their own wholeness. They are destroyed from within, even if outwardly they appear to be the victim. Sometimes evil is a way to attract attention, like a baby's cry, only louder and more dangerous. People don't always know how to ask for help, but they do know how to scream in pain. Their scream is resentment, envy, and jealousy. They want to be heard, but don't know how. And so they speak through malice, sharply, caustically, destructively. They don't know how to say, "I'm scared." And so they say, "You're worthless." They don't know how to say, "I feel abandoned," and so they abandon others first. They think that if they hurt others first, it won't hurt as much when someone hurts them. Their malice is armor worn over a wounded soul. It's a form of protection, ugly, perhaps, but the only one they've ever learned. Behind rudeness, there is often a desperate plea. Notice me, notice that I'm suffering. But instead of help, they receive even more rejection. And this only reinforces their belief that kindness is weakness. And pain becomes the only way to be noticed. And so the cycle repeats. A person who doesn't know how to ask ends up with what hurts them most: loneliness. A person often does harm because they see a reflection of themselves in another. What he hates in himself, he tries to destroy in others. We hurt those who remind us of our own weaknesses. We despise vulnerability in others if we are afraid of our own. We judge because we ourselves were once denied forgiveness. And by not forgiving ourselves, we become cruel to others, rejecting in them what we are afraid to admit in ourselves. But the more we fight ourselves through others, the more deeply we lose touch with our true selves. Other people's actions trigger us not because they are truly evil, but because they touch unhealed places within us. We think that we are suffering with others, But in reality, we are suffering with our own shadows. And this struggle is endless. Until we dare to look at ourselves without masks, to accept that we are not perfect and don't have to be, that vulnerability is not weakness, but a path to true strength. And it is precisely those who irritate us that show us what we ourselves have not yet learned to love within ourselves. Acknowledging this is the first step towards stopping the harm we cause to others and to ourselves. There are also those who hurt others simply because it is easier. Kindness requires effort. It requires looking someone in the eye, understanding, feeling, but evil is instant on blow, one harsh word, and that's it. For a moment, you feel stronger, superior, more righteous, just for a second. But then, when you are left alone, emptiness comes. Because evil never fills you, only destroys. Evil doesn't require thought, only impact. It doesn't call for growth, doesn't demand inner honesty. It's easy, like falling down. While goodness, on the contrary, requires you to rise up, even when you're tired. To be kind is not weakness, it's courage. After all, it takes a lot of strength not to respond to pain with pain, to break the chain of destruction where everything urges you to continue it. And yet, for many, it's easier not to feel, not to think, not to get involved. Evil seems like an easy way to avoid experiencing someone else's pain. But this simplicity always comes at the cost of loneliness, hardening, and loss of meaning. Sometimes we commit evil out of a desire for justice. We think that he deserved it, that she is to blame, that this is the right thing to do. We put ourselves in the judge's seat, forgetting that we don't see the whole picture. We punish without knowing the full story. But evil done in the name of justice remains evil. True justice does not seek revenge. It heals, not cripples. It remains silent where it needs to listen. It forgives where the world demands punishment. True justice does not exalt itself, but restores balance. And there is no pride in it, only wisdom and compassion. When a person truly seeks justice, they do not strive to punish, but to understand. He asks himself difficult questions. Why did this person become this way? What was broken in him before he began to break others? He looks deeper than actions, into their causes, into the root of the pain. True justice is not cold retribution, but a warm yet firm truth. It is not a blow, but a mirror in which a person can see who they have become and who they can still be. It is an opportunity not to condemn, but to give a chance to change. Because if justice offers no hope, it turns into just another form of violence. There is also another, more frightening answer. Evil becomes a habit when a person causes pain and feels no guilt. When the conscience is silent because it has been ignored for too long. When the world around has become so callous that evil no longer surprises anyone. That is when true decline begins. The habit of evil is the most inconspicuous form of destruction. It doesn't scream or inspire horror. It simply becomes the background, like rust on the soul. A person can live like this for years, not realizing that they have lost themselves. They still smile, work, talk about lofty things, but there has long been no light in their actions. But even in this case, a person does not lose the chance to wake up. One encounter, one word, one action, and they will remember that there is a little more inside them than just darkness. Hope does not die even in the darkest places. And someone who once did evil can become the one who stops it first within themselves and then in others. So why do people do evil? Because they haven't learned any other way. Because inside them is a scream that no one has heard. Because they carry old wounds and are afraid to show them. Because no one taught them to be gentle, strong, and honest with themselves. Because they were shown that evil is strength and goodness is weakness. Because they feel no love for themselves or for others. Because they were taught that being tough means survival and being vulnerable means losing. Because they grew up surrounded by shouting blame, silent resentment, and unspoken feelings. Because they lacked a single kind word at the right moment. Because they got used to defending themselves by attacking, confusing fear with anger and strength with control. Because no one ever showed them the path to forgiveness. Because in their world, victory means humiliating, not understanding. Because pain has become so ingrained in them that they can no longer distinguish it from themselves. And yet, in everyone, even in the most hardened person, there is a corner where silence lies gentle, forgotten but real. If only you can reach it, the chain of evil can be broken. Because a person is not born to destroy, but to remember what it means to be light. But there is another truth. A person is capable of choosing every day and every moment. If he realizes the cost of the pain he has caused, he can stop, ask for forgiveness, and start over. And become the one who does not continue the chain of evil, but ends it. The one who says, "It stops with me. I will not cause pain, even if I am hurting. This is not just a decision, it is the strength to go against the usual reaction, against the harshness you yourself have experienced. It is the choice not to be a continuation of someone else's darkness, but to become the beginning of your own light. Sometimes it starts with silence, with a single deep breath, with a refusal to take revenge. Sometimes it starts with an attempt to understand, even if you are not understood, or with a simple, I see you, I hear you, I will not do to you what was done to me. The world will not become kinder until each person starts with themselves, with that small invisible kindness that does not ask for gratitude, with the choice not to respond to evil, with an honest look inside yourself. Because by understanding their own wounds, a person can stop hurting others. And that's when evil will lose its power. It won't disappear right away. It will begin to retreat where a person reclaims their own heart. Let each of us become the point where evil stops. If you feel that these words have resonated with you, please support my channel with a small act of kindness. Leave a like, a comment, and be sure to subscribe. See you soon.